Lindsey Graham made his choice. Lindsey Graham might be heading to jail, and the person behind it? Not who you think.
Pam Bondi just made her biggest move yet after Graham's betrayal of Trump, and it could change everything for 2025.
This is the takedown nobody saw coming, but once you hear it, you won't forget it. Let's get into it. He's going to jail. That's the buzz echoing from D.C. to Georgia to the halls of Mar-a-Lago. Not because it makes good headlines. Not because someone's pushing a narrative. But because for once, the pieces are falling into place so fast, even Lindsey Graham's team doesn't know how to stop the freefall. And it's not the Democrats leading the charge this time. No, it's coming from inside his own party. Or rather, what used to be his party. The one that believed he stood for something until he turned on the man who made him matter. Lindsey Graham, the polished senator from South Carolina, the once loyal Trump ally, the guy who hugged the MAGA movement like it was his own campaign logo, has become the next big liability. And the timing couldn't be worse. Because while the Republican machine starts revving up for the most important election in modern American history, Graham is now entangled in a scandal that could do more than just end his career. It could land him in court, in cuffs, and maybe behind bars. Here's the part most people didn't see coming: the one person Trump trusts to handle this isn't a senator, isn't a strategist, and isn't a campaign manager. It's Pam Bondi. She's not just watching what's happening, she's orchestrating a response. And trust me, she's not out for a political slap on the wrist. She's coming for total destruction. Not just to discredit Graham, but to cut him off from the movement completely. The message? If you betray Trump, you don't get a second chance. You get exposed. Let's rewind. In 2016, Lindsey Graham hated Trump. Called him dangerous, called him unstable, said he wasn't fit for office. And then Trump won. Just like that, Graham switched gears. Suddenly he was on TV defending Trump, calling him a strong leader, hugging him at rallies. MAGA voters, generous as they are, gave him a second shot. Graham raised money, got re-elected, and acted like he had Trump's back every step of the way. Then came the 2020 election. And something changed. Trump was fighting. His team was in courtrooms across the country. His base was louder than ever, demanding transparency, demanding answers. And Graham? He vanished. Barely a whisper. No fire. No defense. And then it dropped. Lindsey Graham had made phone calls to Georgia officials. Not to support Trump. Not to question the fraud. But to ask about ballots. To question signatures. To inquire whether mail-in votes could be thrown out. Georgia's Secretary of State didn't appreciate the tone. His staff said it felt like pressure. Like someone from Washington trying to tilt the scale just enough to change the outcome. And when it leaked, Graham's response was weak. He said he was just curious. Just checking. Just doing his job. But prosecutors in Fulton County didn't buy it. They subpoenaed him. Graham tried to fight it, said he had immunity. He lost. And a senator being forced to testify in an election fraud investigation? That's not routine. That's serious. That's when the walls started closing in. Trump didn't come to his defense. The base turned cold. And quietly, Bondi began moving. She'd seen this before. Politicians pretending to be loyal, only to flip when the pressure comes. She's not passive. She doesn't wait for scandals to fade. She digs. She organizes. She connects the dots. And now she's got her sights on Graham. Sources say she's pulling together a complete timeline of his actions. Everything from internal memos to public statements, matching them up with his back-channel moves during and after the election. And she's preparing to go public. It won't be a rant. It'll be strategic. Controlled. Devastating. Bondi isn't trying to start drama. She's making a point: if you're not truly with Trump, you're against him. And for Graham, that means more than losing favor, it means becoming a warning to everyone else in the party. Because Bondi knows something the establishment still doesn't get. This isn't 2016 anymore. The base is wide awake. They remember who stood with them. And they remember who ran when it mattered. That's why this matters. That's why people are saying Lindsey Graham might be the next one to fall. Because this time, the movement isn't relying on trust. It's relying on proof. And Pam Bondi is bringing it. Graham bet on politics as usual.
He smiled for cameras, played both sides, figured he'd come out clean like always.
But he misread the moment. The people don't want safe. They want loyal. They want fighters.
And now, they're watching him stumble toward the edge.
And Bondi?
She's not pushing him. She's just making sure the lights are on when he falls.
It wasn't always like this.
Just a few years ago, Lindsey Graham was one of the loudest voices standing beside Trump.
You'd see him at press conferences, Fox News interviews, Senate hearings, defending the president at every turn.
He became a regular face of the Trump movement, even when some doubted his sincerity.
But deep down, a lot of people knew something was off.
It wasn't just the sudden switch from calling Trump a crook to praising him as a consequential president.
It was the vibe. Graham always looked like he was saying what needed to be said to stay relevant.
The MAGA base is passionate, loyal, sharp, and they can smell a fake a mile away. Still, most gave him the benefit of the doubt. They believed maybe he'd changed.
Maybe he realized Trump wasn't the problem, maybe he finally got it.
But the truth was, Lindsey Graham never changed.
He adapted. He adjusted.
He saw where the power was going and aligned himself with it, not out of loyalty, but out of survival. That's what DC does to these guys. And that's why when 2020 hit and everything was on the line, his mask slipped.
It didn't come off in a big moment. It came off quietly. Behind closed doors.
While Trump's legal team was fighting election results, while supporters were demanding audits, while rallies were popping up across battleground states, Lindsey Graham was on the phone with Georgia election officials, asking the kind of questions that raised eyebrows.
Questions about rejecting ballots. Questions about signature verification.
Questions that sounded less like curiosity, and more like fishing for an angle. The calls were shady enough that Georgia's Secretary of State and his staff brought them up in sworn statements.
They didn't accuse Graham of issuing threats.
But they didn't say it felt normal either.
One even said they felt pressure. That's enough to spark an investigation. That's enough to raise real legal concerns. And that's exactly what happened. Graham thought he could downplay it. Said it was no big deal.
Said it was his job as a senator to ask questions. He lawyered up, tried to avoid testifying.
Claimed Senate protections. Filed appeals. Lost. Then, quietly, he was forced to appear before a grand jury. That's not a talking point. That's not Twitter drama.
That's a sitting U.S. senator being compelled to speak under oath in an election interference case. And while that was happening, Pam Bondi wasn't sitting still.
She's been watching. And she's not interested in political theater.
She's interested in exposure.
Total, undeniable exposure. She doesn't need Lindsey Graham to admit anything.
She doesn't need a courtroom conviction.
What she's building is stronger than that.
A case in the eyes of the people.
A timeline. A breakdown of every moment Graham said one thing in public and did the opposite behind the scenes.
What he said on air versus what he did off record.
She's matching up statements, comparing notes, digging through call records, pulling testimony. And when it all lines up, it's not going to look like a misunderstanding. It's going to look like a man who cashed in on MAGA, then turned his back when it counted. That's what Bondi's really exposing: intent. Because intent is everything. You can say you supported Trump. You can say you voted for him. You can wear the red tie. But what did you do when it got hard? When the media was calling Trump a dictator, when the courts were rejecting cases, when the pressure hit boiling point, did you stand tall? Or did you pick up the phone, call Georgia, and try to find your way out? Bondi knows what the answer is. She's already heard from insiders who felt betrayed. Staffers, allies, even Trump donors who once backed Graham and now want him nowhere near 2024. And the more she digs, the more this becomes about more than Graham. It's about a pattern. The two-faced Republicans. The ones who pretend to be fighters, but are really just protecting themselves. The base knows now they don't want polished, they don't want cautious. They want real. They want fearless. And when someone like Graham gets caught playing both sides, the punishment isn't political, it's personal. The trust is gone. And the silence from Trump? That says it all. There's no rescue coming. No defense. No clever tweet to save him. Because when you betray someone like Trump, the punishment doesn't come in one blow. It comes slowly. Quietly. As your allies stop calling. Your name disappears from the inner circle. Your supporters stop cheering. And your enemies? They just watch. Pam Bondi isn't trying to destroy Lindsey Graham with one statement. She's letting the truth do the work. And soon, everyone will see it. Pam Bondi doesn't pick fights. She ends them. And this one? She's not walking into it. She's already deep inside it, collecting evidence, building leverage, stacking pieces that most people don't even realize exist yet. She's smart like that. Not loud, not sloppy, just surgical. The kind of person you don't hear coming until it's too late. Lindsey Graham should have known. Because Bondi doesn't strike without purpose. This isn't about headlines. This is about the movement. The message. The purge. There's no room left for the half-loyal and the half-brave. Not in 2024. Not anymore. Trump's team is done playing cleanup for these people. He gave them his endorsement, his platform, his voters. And what did they give back? Speeches. Smiles. And silence when it mattered. That's where Bondi steps in. She's already met with donors who feel burned. She's already spoken to legal minds close to the Georgia investigation. What she's doing now is connecting the dots that make the entire thing unavoidable. Because if you can show the public how Lindsey Graham's support was always a mask, how every statement was just a smokescreen, then you don't need a court to convict him. You let his own words hang him in front of the people who once believed in him. And that's more dangerous than any subpoena. Bondi knows how to work the court of public opinion. She was one of the few who made the impeachment trial swing Trump's way. She didn't just argue the facts, she told the story. She laid it out clearly, calmly, powerfully. That's what she's doing again now. She's crafting the story that'll make even the fence-sitters in the GOP say, yeah, Graham's done. And this time, she's got ammo. Behind closed doors, people are flipping. Not testifying in court, just quietly admitting that yeah, Graham wasn't all in. That behind the scenes, he was the guy saying, we need to move on, while Trump was still in the fight. That while Trump was standing in front of packed crowds, Graham was testing the waters with the press, the donors, the DC elite. And now, Bondi's turning that chatter into something solid. Something usable. Something that can't be ignored. It's not hard to see where this is going. Once the midterms passed in 2024 loomed into view, Bondi's role shifted. She stopped defending. She started vetting. The job now isn't just helping Trump win. It's making sure no one slows him down. That means every weak link gets cut. Every fake friend gets exposed. And if that means taking down a sitting senator? So be it. And the truth is, Graham never believed the base would care. He thought they'd forget. He figured as long as he threw out a pro-Trump line now and then, voters would let the rest slide. But that was his biggest mistake. Because this base doesn't forget. They remember the rallies. The lawsuits. The betrayals. They remember who stood with Trump when the walls were closing in and who disappeared. And Graham's name? It's starting to show up on the wrong side of that list. Bondi's just making sure it stays there. She's already planning the rollout. Interviews. Leaks. Timed disclosures. A campaign of quiet destruction, not to smear, but to expose. Let the voters see what's been hiding in plain sight. Let them watch the words and the actions play side by side. That's all it takes. And once it starts, there's no stopping it. Because this isn't about revenge. It's about integrity. Trump gave Graham a second chance. The base gave him a second chance. And he threw it away for access. For reputation. For relevance in the club that never wanted Trump in the first place. Bondi knows that club. She's been around it. She knows how these senators talk when the cameras are off. She knows who really stood by Trump and who just stood there until it was safe to leave. So now it's her turn. And here's the part nobody wants to admit: the GOP needs this. The party has been splitting for years. One half still wants to play ball with CNN and Sunday morning panels. The other half? The half that actually votes? They want fighters. Not politicians. Not word games. They want warriors. And Bondi is handing them proof that Graham isn't one. She doesn't need to yell. She doesn't need to perform. All she needs to do is drop the evidence and let the base handle the rest. Because once they see the full picture, there's no coming back for him. Lindsey Graham doesn't belong in courtrooms, but that's exactly where he's been dragged. Not because of politics. Not because someone's out to get him. Because of what he did. Because of what he said. Because of the calls he made when he thought nobody would ever hear about them. And now that they've surfaced, not even his title can protect him. He made the call. To Georgia's Secretary of State. At a time when the state's election results were still being finalized. While Trump's legal team was in the trenches. While Americans were marching, demanding audits, demanding investigations. That's when Graham picked up the phone. And what did he say? According to sworn testimony from election officials, he asked about ballot rejection. He asked whether signature matches could lead to tossed votes. He asked questions that didn't sound neutral. They sounded loaded. Directed. Pressured. They weren't questions from a senator seeking facts. They were questions that sounded like he was feeling out a way to shift the result. And that's why the grand jury in Fulton County didn't just want to speak with him, they forced him. Graham didn't want to testify. He tried to block it. Cried Senate privilege. Said he was doing his job. Courts said no. All the way up to the Supreme Court, he lost every appeal. That's not how it goes for someone with nothing to hide. And when he finally showed up to testify, he didn't walk out with a press conference. He didn't face cameras. He disappeared into silence, hoping it would all fade. It won't. Because what's on the line isn't just political clout. It's criminal exposure. And not theoretical, real, chargeable, prison time level exposure. Georgia state law is brutal when it comes to election interference. They've already hit others with RICO-style indictments. Trump allies. Former campaign lawyers. People with more distance than Graham had. And Graham? He was sitting U.S. Senate. Picking up phones. Calling state officials. If prosecutors decide to move forward, and every sign suggests they're getting close, Graham isn't just facing embarrassment. He's facing real indictments. Now here's where it gets worse. Because legal trouble is one thing. But political isolation? That's the slow death. And that's already happening. Trump hasn't defended him once. Not once. No tweet, no post, no quote. Nothing. Graham is radioactive now. People around Trump are avoiding him. Donors are talking. Former staffers are distancing themselves. He's no longer invited into the room, he's the reason the room gets quiet. And Pam Bondi? She's making sure he doesn't sneak back in. What she's doing isn't just exposure, it's exile. Quiet, lethal exile. Graham had protection when Trump liked him. When the base trusted him. That's gone. Bondi is filling the vacuum, stepping in with facts, details, a timeline, one that shows a clear betrayal. She's not just working the public. She's working behind the scenes. Whispers to networks. Talks with influencers. Strategy with people inside the movement. People who shape opinion. Who decide who's welcome and who's not. And everyone's waiting for the trigger. Because once the Georgia indictment drops, if it drops, it's over. Graham will be the first sitting Republican senator in recent memory to face criminal charges related to an election. That headline alone changes the game. And if it doesn't drop? Bondi's backup plan is already in motion. A slow, steady public release. Information. Transcripts. Statement comparisons. Quotes that contradict each other. The kind of thing you can't unsee once it's out there. The kind of thing voters remember next time a name like Graham appears on a ballot. She's not after handcuffs. She's after permanent disqualification from the movement. From the base. From the future of the party. And it's working. Because even the people who used to defend him don't anymore. They're cautious. They're watching. They're thinking, if Bondi's got this much, what else does she have? Graham thought he could outlast the outrage. He forgot who he was dealing with. This isn't cable news. This isn't a temporary scandal. This is Trump's America First Army locking in, cutting deadweight, and getting ready for 2024. Graham's name? It's already scratched off the list. He's not going to be part of the next wave. He's going to be the example. Lindsey Graham won't go quietly, but he's already gone. His time as a MAGA figure is over. His name doesn't mean what it used to. He's no longer seen as an ally. He's a warning. A reminder of what happens when you try to play both sides, when you take the energy of a movement and use it to protect your own status. The people are done being played. And that's what this is really about. This moment, this reckoning, it isn't just about Graham. It's about what comes next. Because 2024 isn't going to be polite. It's not going to be comfortable. It's not about smiles, sound bites, or reaching across the aisle. It's about clarity. Loyalty. Direction. Pam Bondi isn't just going after Graham because he made a mistake. She's going after him because the movement has no time left for mistakes. This is the final filter. And she's not the only one watching. Trump's circle is shrinking on purpose. Every endorsement is strategic. Every rally, every handshake, every name he mentions, it's intentional now. No more freeloaders. No more fence sitters. Only fighters. Because the mission has changed. It's not just about taking the White House back. It's about taking the party back. From the inside. From the ones who use the right slogans but push the wrong agendas when the cameras are off. Graham's fall isn't just punishment, it's a message. You don't get to fake it anymore. And the message is being heard. Across the country, local chapters are shifting. Grassroots groups are organizing. New candidates are rising up, not polished, not scripted, but real. People who don't just wear the red hat, they live the values behind it. And they're watching what happens to Graham. They're watching how Bondi handles it. They're learning the lesson. Because there's a new rule now. One rule. One line that decides who's in and who's out. When the pressure comes, when the media attacks, when the establishment leans in, do you stand by the man who stood by you? Or do you fold? Graham folded. And now, as the base tightens ranks, as Bondi prepares her next move, as the truth keeps coming out. He's not just a senator under investigation. He's a symbol of what's being left behind. And what will never be allowed back in again. If you're still here, you already know this isn't just a headline. This is a turning point. Like this video if you're done with fake allies. Drop a comment, do you believe Graham should face charges? And tell us, who else do you think is hiding behind the MAGA mask? Make your voice heard. And hit subscribe, because this channel isn't here to protect the swamp. We're here to expose it. Now it's your turn. See you in the next video.